John. Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thank you very much, Esmail. It's good to see you. And how are you today?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Everything is good.
Good.
Today we need to talk about the life lessons as you just finished that Camino de Santiago walk and you started to assess your self and to look at yourself differently. I need to talk with you about this experience and what you got and how did you change your way of looking to you and the life and people. So yeah, in brief, can just tell us more about that walk, about like Camino de Santiago in brief?
Yeah, it's an interesting one with the Camino de Santiago. I really believe that the things, if you believe in your fate, or you believe that you're meant to do certain things, then they will happen, and they can happen in many different ways. And I don't know for whatever reason, Ishmael, but I stumbled across the Camino de Santiago. I don't know. I don't think anybody told me. I must have read about it somewhere. And I read that there were these spiritual pilgrimages, walks which were predominantly across Spain. What started in Portugal, some started in Spain, and some started in France. Mm-hmm. And they date back hundreds of years, and they're these trails which all end up at the city of Santiago in Galicia. And it caught my imagination, and I saw that there was one of them which left close to where I live here in Granada. It started in Seville, and so 3 years ago I had this crazy notion about cycling from Seville to Santiago, and following this trail, and it was going to be 1,000 kilometers. And I'm not going to talk too long, but effectively, I didn't prepare well enough. I was ill-equipped, and after 250 kilometers in a city called Mérida in the region of Extremadura, I stopped purely because physically I was hurting, and mentally I was shocked. I couldn't get it, mentally. And so, I'd had an experience of it, and I experienced, some things, and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, this is something I want to do. I want to do this again. And I met some incredible people, and what I found that I really enjoyed, Ishmael, was that it really felt like living in a parallel universe. I felt, very much detached from the 21st century, which was really good because it took me away from the craziness and the speed of a fast developing century. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, and of course we had COVID, and so nothing could happen. And then my curiosity led me towards the Camino walks, and I saw that there was one which went up from Porto in northern Portugal to Santiago. And I saw that it was 300 kilometers, and I thought, that's a little bit more, I think, more achievable for me, rather than, having never walked 1,000 kilometers to eat up. And, so I thought, this sounds something which, is more achievable, and it's an ambition, and it's a good target, and it's a great challenge, but it's not a ridiculous distance of which I have no experience of doing. Yeah, and the thing is with these, Ishmael, is it's an individual choice. Yes. But this time, through the experience of what happened to me last time, I decided I didn't want to cycle. I decided I wanted to walk. I did a lot of research, and I did it. And I got a train to Madrid. I got a plane from Madrid to Porto, Portugal. I stayed for a day in Porto, and then I started the walk. And effectively, it was walking 25 kilometers a day. Wow. From northern Portugal into Spain, and staying in hostels in bunk beds which were shared, men and women sharing. The bathrooms obviously were separated, but it was about sharing and really being ultimately responsible, and also allowing you allowing yourself to accept that you weren't having your own privacy. Yet
Yes.
you were having your own privacy by doing the walk. I started the walk, and I think the most important part of it was completing the first day, because by the time I got to, they call the hostels out here albergues, and I got to and they can be private or they can be public. They can be funded by the local council. So the first day I arrived was a public albergue, and you can't book these. You need to get there as they open, and they tend to open about 2:00 in the afternoon. So it was always a case of leave early enough in the morning so that you could get there at a good time to get a bed, because you don't know how many people are doing the same as you. I think and I met an Italian lady the first day, and we walked together and we arrived together, and we started experiencing, that situation together. And from there, it sort of expanded. And, I had a very sort of positive mind. And I really embraced it very, very quickly. And I think the easy way for me to embrace it was, everywhere else, was that I knew that it was ultimately really, really safe. The only sort of danger would be sort of me doing something stupid or injury. But apart from that, I felt mentally really, really strong.
About you started to feel mentally different, and you started to see things differently, and maybe give that opportunity to think about yourself, about what you have done in your life. So
I think, in all honesty, the first few days, it wasn't really thinking about, my life and reflecting or anything. It was really more of a case of concentrating on making sure that, everything I was doing in the moment was sort of, propelling me forward, was making sure that I was, because you need to get used to the situation that you're in. It's not just a case of going, oh, okay, now I'm walking and let me just think about my life. And, you need to experience the moment that you're in, and you got to, keep your attention, because you're following sort of signs. They have, sort of signs on rocks, like yellow arrows or yellow shells. And so you've got to, pay attention. And it also gives you an opportunity to really appreciate, the moment that you're in. That the only responsibility that you have in your day is to get from, your departure to your destination. Following, the route to the best of your ability, and, making sure that you keep your mental and physical strength, the best as possible. And as you progress, that's when you start, because you get more used to it, and so it becomes more natural. That's when it gives you an opportunity to sort of, start, expanding the thoughts that you have, and sort of, looking at the environment that you're in, and really marveling. And I think one of the things which really struck me was that what the Camino does, and it has a lot of unwritten rules. And when but when I say rules, they're kind of sort of thoughts or meanings, and that is that everybody's journey is their own journey. You do that journey how you want to do it. You do it in the time that you want to do it. You make decisions for what is the best for you, which actually is quite different to sort of the way a lot of people lead their lives, where they make decisions thinking about what it is they should do, or what they think people would want them to do, rather than what they actually do themselves. And the other thing I think that was important for me was that I was really completely convinced that I didn't want to go with somebody. I didn't want to go with a friend. I didn't want to go.
I want to do it alone.
I wanted to go alone. I knew I would meet people, and there would be days I'd be walking with people, and I knew there'd be days when I was walking on my own. And that actually happened. Some days I walked with people, I made some nice friendships, and then there was other days where I just walked. I walked on my own, and that was absolutely fine for me as well, because again, I had the opportunity of safety. But what I think really struck me so much was that, how much we rely on living in a world of convenience. Everything we do sort of revolves around convenience. Everything we do now is at the touch of a button, or if we want to buy anything, we just kind of, go onto an app, or, everything is readily available for us. And, there's a little bit of a sort of like, self-preservation responsibility you have walking on the Camino. You've got to kind of, it's easy to think, 25 kilometers, that's not very far. But when you start walking it, I mean, you're talking probably 6 hours, and that's going at a reasonable pace. So there's 6 hours. So you've got to think about, when you eat, what do you take? It's you've got to look after yourself. And
Yes.
And so that sort of takes up, an awful lot of your time. But as you get more used to it, you start sort of looking at the world and thinking, this is good. I like this. It's like, it's got a really lovely sort of gentle simplicity about it. It gives me an opportunity to sort of really enjoy, the world that I am fortunate enough to have a life to live in. And I think it gives you that appreciation of how much of a gift life is and how much of a beautiful world we live in. And I don't think that's quite so easy to appreciate when we're living in the craziness of the 21st century with the responsibility a lot of us have. Yes. And I think also the time of my life that I've done it as well. I'm retired. I don't have that pressure of work. But I was walking with, young people. I walked with sort of, some people who were like college students. People who had now just started their way in their working life. And so for them, it was like, right, we've got this amount of time, we have to get here. And I think slowly as they progressed through their journey, they also, reevaluated the way that they saw life. So I didn't really sort of look back and sort of reflect on, perhaps it would have been if I'd done this better, or why didn't I do that? I think what I appreciated was that, whatever I've done in my life had brought me to that point, as I'm sort of like, walking through another beautiful forest, or I'm experiencing really a lot of discomfort from the pain from my feet. Every experience was worthwhile.
Like we can say, as a result of this magnificent experience, you start to have that clear mind and to think, and as you said, like to appreciate your life and appreciate this world that you are living in. So my first question is like, what have you liked best about your life so far?
Well, to be totally honest with you, Esmail, I think I've sort of enjoyed, being at the stage I am in my life at the moment. I don't think I've really sort of, been, happier. I think I'm, for me, I've been quite a late sort of, learner with regards to how best to, discover myself and, and lead my life. So I've really sort of, you see, when we finish work, and we go into retirement, we don't have any kind of practice on being retired. We just all of a sudden stop work. I was happy to sort of retirement, but I still didn't really understand what it was I was going to do. So, and it's been in the journey probably in the last 3 years, where I've really sort of, discovered what it is that I want from my life. And what I have discovered is I don't actually really want a lot. I just want to sort of, feel content. I want to go to bed sort of, feeling positive about the day I've had and look forward to the next day. And each day I start with a clean slate, leaning towards positivity. But then again, the pressure on me in life is so much less than it was. So for me now, I think, when I look, and I do look back a lot of my life. I use it as a sort of like, reference. And a lot of the things that I did, I still feel the mental discomfort of it, to be honest. But then again, I kind of, I'm not hard on myself because I came through it. I mean, I'm fortunate that I sort of, came through certain, difficult things that I put myself into. So, and I think, with what happens with the Camino, and I said this to several people when I was walking, is that I think everybody should go and walk on the Camino de Santiago. I think it should be compulsory because it really does sort of like, give you a different perspective. And I think it was really summed up for me was the morning I was getting a train back home. And Santiago was 1,000 kilometers from my home just outside of Granada. So I had 2 train journeys. I had, like a 3.5, 4-hour journey down to Madrid, and I had an hour wait, and then I had the same again down to Granada from Madrid. And I sat on the train, and I didn't have anything that it wasn't, I need to occupy myself, I need to read. I had my AirPods, and I just sat there, and I don't think I had felt so at peace with myself and the world ever in my life. And I got home and, I just felt so unbelievably peaceful. But that changed quite quickly within a week.
Yeah.
It was all, So consequently, I've sort of, I'm going back out again in October. I'm going to do another 300 kilometers on another Camino. I'm not. This walk won't be a destination of Santiago. I mean, this one is. I'm going to go back on the one I originally did, pick it up from where I started. From where I finished, and then probably walk about 300 plus kilometers.
Wow.
Over about 2 to 3 weeks, and see how that experience is, because I'm going to have experience of done something.
Absolutely,
See, but I was originally thinking of going next May, but I said to my wife, I really want to go back out. Would you mind if I was away for another 3 weeks? And she said, no, you should go and do it. She really understands why I want to do it. It's not a need, Esmail, it's a want. I don't need to do this. I want to do it. But I've also sort of decided is when I do, because next May I'll do the final third of this walk. But I think after that, I don't know whether or not I would look to do another one. I like the idea of, because for me, this isn't sort of like a spiritual sort of like, walk. It's just something, it's a beautiful thing to do in a really well marked out route. But I think I like the idea of sort of going away and walking on my own on multi.
And as you said, like you did, you detached or you separated yourself from the life and started to have just yourself thinking about your life, what you have done in your life so far, what like the result of what you've done, and having this opportunity is not that easy.
No, as I said at the very beginning of this, I think a lot of this, does resolve around, your fate. If you believe in your fate, things, you recognize things, which come up, in front of you, and that's what the Camino de Santiago did. It was almost like, this is something that would be really good for you to do, John. So I was fortunate in that respect.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll see you, my friend.
Yeah, see you.
Okay.